Good morning, everyone. I call the meeting of the Portsmouth Economic Development Authority to order. Indeed, it's always a pleasure to see everyone here on this bright, sunny, early in the morning. Again, thank you for being here. And as is our normal method, we will allow our secretary, Ms. Donahue, to walk us through the agenda, beginning with the roll call.
Great. Good morning. Thank you, Chairman Smith. I'll begin with the roll. Mr. Barber.
Here.
Ms. Drury. Mr. Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Saunders Smith. Mrs. Smith. And Mr. Smith.
Here.
Chair, we have a quorum. Your first item on the agenda is review your minutes from your regular meeting from April 19th and your April 26th joint meeting with City Council. Those were distributed in your package on Friday. If you have any questions or comments, we're certainly able to take those.
I'll move approval of both sets of minutes.
Second.
Okay. The motion to approve both minutes. I'll read the roll. Mr. Barber.
All right.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
And Mr. Smith.
Here. Yes. Yes.
Thank you, sir. The minutes are approved as presented. And we are now on to the financials from the month of April. We have Ms. Patty Phillips from the finance department here.
Good morning.
A member of your team as well.
Yes, I'm with that. This is Ms. Tyara Pope, and she assists in preparing these financials. And I thought it'd be a good idea for her to be here and see the meeting in progress. Okay. I'm just going to hit highlights as I usually do, but as always, if there are any questions, stop me and ask. Cash, as you might know from your recent transactions, we have a total of $9,358,003. Most of it in town bank investments, and then of course you have your EDA account with the Bank of America as set up by the city treasurer. The other thing I wanted to highlight is you see where the property held for resale went down since the first of the fiscal year. Down $6.5 million, reflecting the value of the sales that you had. There is accounts payable about $190,000 and grants payable. Grants you have approved but not yet paid out of $227,862. So the unrestricted fund balance net position is $20,743,841. The majority of which is your land you held for resale. So if you really want to look at your position, your $9 million is free. Turning now to the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. Sales year to date of over 15 million, almost 16 million, with a cost of 6.6 million. So gain on those sales of 9,185,000. We've had some rental income. And we've had contractual services, primarily maintenance. And if you look at the budget detail, you'll see exactly which accounts those went to. Closing costs and those kinds of things. The grants is below the line. You'll see non-operating revenues and expenses grants of 263,754. Small amount of investment income and interest expense that you had incurred on the debt before it got paid out. Contributions of land from Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing, 108,000. Some of the land that you had sold previously was obtained with federal funds, so that was returned to the city, 24,000, and transfers of contributions to the city, which basically represent rent received. So your net position since the beginning of the year has improved 8,672,345,000. So a good net position. And you see the land inventory, you'll see a detail on the cost, detailed sales. There's land inventory 12 that adds to the number on the balance sheet. And if you'll scroll down to the next, which is basically the detailed sales, if you want to refer back to that, the most recent on the March 10th of the Victory Boulevard properties. And I think these others are the budget to actual, the original budgets and where you stand. You'll see some of those grounds maintenance and some of those things that contractual services. And the last is really more detail on the grants approved. And I won't go into detail those because I know Brian has gone over those quite a bit. And that's a nutshell there. How long was that nutshell? A couple minutes.
Thank you very much, always very good, short to the point. And are there any questions?
I just have one question. I know we consolidated our funds with the city, but what's the interest that we're getting on that?
You know, I don't know, but right now I'll get that for you. It's whatever he can get, you know, citywide, and I expect that rate is going up, you know, given the cost of the Fed funds rates going up. So I expect we're getting a little bit better than we had been.
And those funds are allocated back to us by
It's actually a separate account.
Okay.
Yeah, so whatever you earn on it goes back to the
Super. Okay.
So
authority.
maybe the consolidated is not a good terminology.
Well, it's under his purview.
Right, under the city treasurer, right. Yeah, we don't want to get that misunderstood.
Right. Good question.
Any other questions? Thank you again.
Okay. So, Patty, thank you for the update. I think, you know, really one of the important takeaways is our financial position going into FY23 has had a significant increase to the positive side here. And when we have our budget discussion here this morning, I think, you know, there are a number of things that we're looking to do that will be possible because of some of the activities that have occurred recently. So, Patty, thank you for sharing where we stand currently. I would also like to recognize Mrs. Smith. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we have no old business to revisit this morning. So that would bring us to the new business portion of the meeting. And your first item under new business is an update on the 2022 Business Investment Grant Program. We have the three programs that the EDA is operating. The first is your Real Property Investment Grant. Then we also have the new programs, which includes the Smart Start Business Investment Grant. And in addition to that, the Smart Start Acceleration Grant as well. So we have that before you on the screen here. This is your listing of the businesses that we have assisted as of April 30th. That was the cutoff date for the fiscal year round for the program. We have 12 grant applications that you see on the screen. And those are all approved grants. My vision is not as good as I thought it was going to be, but I believe we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 142,000 that we have.
272.
Excuse me, 164,000 that we have approved as of April 30th for real property investment grant funding. We have another 8 applications that are currently under review. So certainly working to process that surge we got at the end of April. I would expect that we will most likely get very close to fully utilizing the 300,000 that we've allocated for the program this fiscal year.
Excuse me, you said 300,000?
Yes, ma'am, 300,000.
The eight that's pending, what type of applicants are they?
It really varies. We have, you know, retailers, restaurants. There are actually 2 applications that you will have for review here this morning as well. I believe both of those are restaurants. It really varies quite a bit.
I mean, very, very diverse and very varied, types and sizes.
So you say it's 154,000 remaining, but only 8 applicants left. Is that going to expend that entire 154 with those 8 people?
It's, the requests are varying in terms of the dollar amount.
Right.
Obviously, the maximum award would be 25,000 per applicant. So it's really going to just depend on the specific project.
Okay.
A lot of them smaller grants also.
The majority we've been able to assist with an administrative review. So those are less than $10,000. So that could be the case with the remaining applicants as well. Okay. So we are now looking at the business development grant. Again, these are for businesses that are just launching, so your startups, and those businesses that are less than 3 years of age, providing up to $2,000. To date, we have assisted 10 businesses that have received funding. So we are just shy of $20,000 that has been awarded. And we have another 24 that are currently under review. So you can see that major surge we had as folks were looking to get in by the April 30th cutoff. So we are working diligently to review those applications. I want to thank our staff for their work. This has really been kind of a full-time job going through these grant applications. So it's been a lot of work that they have put into that, and we're trying to go through them as quickly as we can. And then your last, if we go to the next slide, is the Business Acceleration Grant for your businesses between 3 and 7 years of age. This is the matching reimbursement program, up to $5,000 in funding. And you will see here that we have awarded 8 businesses funding totaling $37,000 as of April 30th. And we have another 8 applications currently under review with this program. Our intent is to relaunch the program beginning in July of the upcoming fiscal year. We'll discuss that in the budget review here in just a little while this morning. But should you choose to allocate funding, we will hopefully relaunch in July. We are going to come back to you next month with some recommendations for tweaking the program a little bit based on the fact that this is a new program in many ways. We've experienced some things that we'd like to address, and I think ways that we can improve all 3 programs. So we'll be bringing some recommendations back to you in June for your consideration discussion at that point. But certainly I can answer any questions you may have about how these 3 programs as they exist today. Yes, Councilman Bennett.
The documents that you give, like for instance, these documents, is there any way you can make them larger and
Yes, sir.
legible?
Yes, for whatever reason, they printed out on the portrait, we can certainly increase the size of it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
They're difficult to read. I'm having a hard time myself. So yes, absolutely.
Ryan, I just have one question. I know you're a little short of staff. Has that impacted the turnaround time on request?
I would say that, yes, to answer your question, yes. And that's the reason we closed the round for the program in April. We have had a tremendous number of applications that we've had to process, which further compounds the issue. But we're working very hard to get through those. And, I will say our typical response time to an applicant is between 7 and 10 days.
Okay.
And at that point in time, we've done an initial review of the application, but it's been somewhat of a challenge just because of the sheer number that we've received. Our hope is that we will be staffed back up by July so we can relaunch the program, and that will not continue to be an issue. It's kind of been a temporary pain that we had to experience, but it was necessary. So we're working through it. Okay, so no further questions. We do have 2 grant applications for consideration this morning. The first is for a property at 615 High Street.
I do, before we get into this, I do have one question. We're gonna relaunch in July. Does that include, rebranding also? Because part of the issue that I had voiced in an earlier meeting is that the information is not dispersed to a wide enough, an amount of people. A lot of people don't even know about the programs because it's not reaching certain audiences. So is it are you going to consider rebranding it so it could have a wider scope when you do the relaunch?
To answer your question, yes. When we relaunch the program, we will do another outreach effort through various means. So we'll engage with our city marketing department to push that out, both through social media, other avenues. So we continue trying to reach audiences that maybe we haven't been successful with previously.
Thank you.
Yes.
Great.
And we're always open to new avenues too, if you're aware.
All right, thank you.
I know you deal with all kinds.
Okay. 615 High Street, Nonvegan Cell Food. This is an existing business on High Street, the Old Town community. They are expanding. They've been looking to expand for some time. They've had some challenges, obviously weathering the storm that was COVID, but they've come out and are growing, and they have an interest and have actually begun the expansion process with the leasing of the space adjacent to where they're currently located. So that is what you're seeing here on the screen. This is the adjacent suite, which they have leased. They will be doubling their footprint, and they are requesting funding assistance in the amount of $25,000 to assist with the build out of this space, essentially converting it from a commercial office space to additional restaurant space to include a expanded kitchen and seating dining areas, as well as prep and storage rooms. So doubling their footprint. So we're really excited about this. They really do fill a niche. It is a vegan restaurant, and they're very health oriented. So this is certainly something that is a destination downtown, and we're very interested in supporting them with their efforts. I believe, Pam, I think we may have, so one other slide for this. Okay. I do have floor plans here, but essentially they are gutting this space and expanding the dining room and kitchen area. That will also allow for them to pursue opportunities for catering, which is something they're not able to accommodate now in their existing space. So providing a new avenue for their business to pursue. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about this application.
If no questions, we'll
Move approval.
Second that motion.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Barber, second by Mr. Brown. Please the roll. Mr. Barber,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
and Mr. Smith.
yes.
Okay, the motion passes. I have a 5. Your next applicant is Yokes on Us 2. This is another existing business in the city. They're currently located on Washington Street in Old Town. They are expanding to Portsmouth Boulevard. I do apologize that the address on your agenda was incorrect. The actual address is 6205 Suite A. And they will be converting this space, which I believe has had a past life as 2 other restaurants. I think most recently was Lease's.
Yes.
There's what kind of food?
Leases. There used to
There
be
were
leases.
two former
Okay.
restaurants in this space. One was Lease's, I think before that maybe Bumpers had a location out here. They will be updating the space. You can see it needs a lot of work. They're planning to make about $76,000 in investment in the space. It's a complete redo of the interior to include heating and air, kitchen upgrades, as well as new flooring. You can see the walls and ceiling are in disrepair. They do have some roof issues that they will be incorporating as part of their renovation plans. And they are requesting $25,000 in funding to update this space for a new restaurant. So this will be their second location. Again, very pleased with the fact that they have weathered COVID and they're expanding. I think that's a good sign of the restaurant and hospitality industry in Portsmouth. And this is another small minority-owned business that we are assisting here. So another great story for a restaurant.
And this is behind the town bank at Hodges Ferry Road, at the shopping center,
Oh, okay.
Portsmouth Boulevard and Hodges Ferry Road. Across from right behind town bank, the very end location of that shopping center.
I think they're right next door to Dollar General, maybe perhaps.
Well, there's a couple other little businesses. There's a jewelry repair store and a nail shop. Then it's Dollar General.
Any other questions?
What was the amount they were seeking?
They were requesting $25,000. Their total investment is $76,000.
Move approval.
Second.
Second was from Mrs. Smith.
Yeah.
Okay. The roll, Mr. Barber,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
and Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes. And we are now on to the FY23 budget. We were expecting to have Mr. Uri and Ms. Saunders Smith here this morning to present on behalf of the Budget Committee, which did meet earlier this month. Mr. Uri had an unexpected conflict and Ms. Saunders Smith is not able to attend. I'm certainly open to going through and reviewing the budget and discussing items in any detail that you wish. We are able to revisit this in June for a vote if necessary. We just need to make sure that it is in place and adopted prior to the start of the fiscal year on July 1.
Yeah, and I would recommend, if y'all consent, that if you see something pressing now that you want to talk about, we can, but let's have the final discussions after they get back. They will be back next month, and then we can certainly approve it then. So either you can, if you got some pressing now you want to ask about it, you can, or just hold it until our next meeting. Okay. So we got everybody's consent. I see Neil consent. I don't see anybody else looking at me.
It's fine with me.
And okay, well, we will proceed. And obviously, we have representatives here from finance this morning. So Ms. Phillips, Ms. Pope, feel free to jump in with any discussion as needed. What we have brought before you is a mostly flat budget, I would say, with the exception of some notable differences really related to your sale of CDA land. We had an exceptional situation last year, which was a sale of the casino site. And what we were looking at is essentially returning to normal operations here in FY23. So as you work through the first section, which is your operating revenues, you will see that essentially we have kept that in line with prior years. We do anticipate a number of property closings to occur in the upcoming year. So we have projected $500,000 in revenue through sales of EDA land. We will also be receiving income on some of the rental properties that you have in your portfolio. So really not a lot to note there. There is the miscellaneous revenue of $125,000. That is the rent that comes from the Renaissance Hotel lease. And later on in the budget, you'll see that goes back to the city. Yes, sir.
Explain that to me, the Renaissance situation. Are we leasing something from them?
Yes, sir. So
No,
the-
they're leasing from.
Oh, I'm sorry.
From-
Yes,
From us.
From the
From
city.
your question. Yes, so there's a ground lease between the EDA and the Renaissance. So there's a lease payment that is made annually to the EDA of $125,000, and the EDA serves as a pass-through. So those funds are transferred to the city.
And so what are we leasing to them?
Land,
The land under the
land underneath the
and
hotel.
Oh,
And,
okay.
and some parking space. Yeah.
Right.
But this was a public-private
Private
partnership
partnership,
in
yes.
like the early 2000s.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
City paid for parking, so forth.
Yes, ma'am.
So we serve as the pass-through for that.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Unless there are any other questions about your operating revenues, we can move on to your expenses. Again, you will see we've held these in line with last year, essentially. We have included $3 million for land acquisition. Those are activities that we're not undertaking this year. We have not acquired property as was proposed in 22. So we will be looking to begin that. We've had numerous conversations about strategically focusing on certain areas of the city, and we will continue with that focus in the upcoming fiscal year. I'm just going to note some of the significant line items here. Economic development grants, we have held this consistent with last year as well. We earmarked $1 million. The way we have broken that down is you have $800,000, which is set aside. And then that is discretionary. We also have your Smart Start grants, each in the amount of $100,000, which is steady with what we are funding this year. We do believe that is sufficient. We will be operating the program for an entire fiscal year. This was a shortened year as the program's launched in January. So the upcoming year, we feel like that's sufficient based on the numbers we presented to you this morning.
And always, if the demand requires it, we can come back and readjust.
I have a question with that. The money that we don't disperse and distribute this year, does that roll over into this?
Patty, would you like to address how that all works with the
That
cities?
basically, on a cash basis, whatever you receive, whatever you spent or accrued, falls back into your balance sheet.
Okay.
So
So it doesn't, we don't lose it.
no, this is the authority's funds,
Okay.
Kind of rolls back into the pot for
future use.
utilization in the following year.
That's why we have the flexibility of revisiting the amounts during the year if we see a need to increase.
Okay, moving down, line 25, your contractual other and contractual workforce development. There was a recommendation to increase funding. Overall, your contractual line, I believe, has remained the same. But there was an increase to the workforce development side from $135,000 in the current fiscal year to a $200,000 funding provision. This is to cover increased programming expenses that we project, as Ms. Krim had shared with you at an earlier meeting this year. We have exhausted all of the funds that have been allocated through the various sources of funding to the program, including the EDAs, based on the increasing demand in a number of these areas that we have been providing training and certification programs to include healthcare, commercial driver's license programs, and so forth. So this will allow for us to reach an even larger segment of the population. And we are, in addition to the EDA's funds, going to be receiving some CDBG funding as well again this year. And then obviously our departmental budget supports the program as well. So that was a recommendation of the budget committee that I didn't want to share with you. Are there any questions on that section of the budget? Okay. Moving down to your development properties, up for resale, you will note that a number of our costs have been reduced. This is largely due to the sale of the casino property, and there were a number of carrying and costs associated with the disposition of that property, which have gone away. So there is a cost savings to the section of your budget. That was also led to a reduction in some of the fees that we pay for stormwater and landscaping and so forth as well. Moving onto your operating income, you will note the first line reflects this local incentive program. This is your real property investment grant. It's shown as a negative here. That is the funding coming out for that real property investment grant program. So again, that is being maintained at the level that you have funded over the years, and our intention is to fully exhaust that. Again, there are a couple of items in this section that have reduced or actually been eliminated, and those are related to the debt service for the properties that have been acquired from the Greater Portsmouth Development Corporation. We paid those notes off this spring following the sale of the casino property, so that interest payment that you had been making has gone away. And again, we've had some cost savings there as a result. Those are the noteworthy items. Again, we've tried to keep the budget in line with what has been funded in the past. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Certainly, we're able to revisit this in June, and at that time, again, not a whole lot of change.
One question I have is, I know we've identified some areas like the Innovation District. Is there some marketing funds in this budget to promote those new areas to consumers, or the marketing dollars in general?
We do. We actually have under your contractual line the ability to cover any marketing expenses. Business development as well is another area and source of funding for marketing. But keep in mind that it's also a city initiative, the Innovation District. So the city has marketing resources as well. And our department would be included in that. So we do have other resources to market the Innovation District. I will share with you that the Innovation District plan is in development right now. We've actually been meeting with the consultant this week. So that will be an ongoing process. Will likely take a year or two to fully develop the plan. There are some proposed changes with respect to zoning regulations and so forth that will likely come with that. That would go before council if they are proposed and for consideration. So it's going to be a long planning process, but certainly we have the ability to, when it is ready, push that out and market that. I believe Councilman Dowell looked like you had a comment or a question perhaps.
No,
Oh, okay.
no, sir.
All right. I thought you were raising your hand, sir. So that will be something we will be funding.
And always keep in mind who initiates certain projects, initiatives, and when they do it, you know, they run it, they fund it. So, we don't get involved with funding unless we initiate.
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah.
Can you explain that again, a little more in detail? You're talking about a project, a corridor?
No,
The corridor. The city right now has an established innovation district, and that is the area, I think it's historically been called Uptown, when you get west of Effingham.
Yes, I
And,
know
so
about that.
the northern limit would be London Boulevard, the southern limit would be County Street.
Right.
And I think it would run between the MLK extension and Elm Avenue currently, to go a little bit further than that in the future. But it's been coined the Innovation District, and it's an area where the EDA has a large amount of property holdings. There are privately held properties, and we've had a lot of development activity and interest. The new community health center is under construction right in the middle of it. And there is currently a planning process underway to determine how the city can re-envision this area. And with that, what types of support can the city provide and the EDA provide to encourage business investment.
And who's planning that?
So that is being run through the planning department.
And the planners are,
It's being overseen by Deputy City Manager Bob Baldwin, and the planner assigned with that task is Brian Sweats. He's managing the project, and that is underway. So they did an RFP, the consultants have been hired, they're on board, and we began meeting with them this week to have discussions about implementing the plan.
but our role is our parcels that we control and that we maintain within that district. That's what we have preview over, and we have entertained some leads already from some of the parcels, but not anything significant.
You said Elm Avenue to what along on High Street?
So the eastern western boundaries right now would essentially be Elm Avenue, extending west to just beyond the Martin Luther King Bridge.
Okay.
Now those boundaries are being looked at as part of the planning process. Those were established as a kind of a preliminary area, but it's all being looked at
Oh, good.
and considered in the planning process.
How many parcels do we own or do we control within that district?
I'd be reluctant to give you just a rough number, but I would say probably
Quite a few.
At least half a dozen.
Okay.
are you gonna be inclusive with the existing owners or try to buy them out?
There will be a community outreach effort to engage with the existing property owners, so they will be involved and have the ability to participate in the planning process. There will be a number of community meetings, charrettes, design, engagement activities with the community, so they have every opportunity to participate. It will be a public process, and will include, obviously, planning commission, city council. So yes, there will be involvement.
So Bob Baldwin is running that process. Is that correct?
His department is overseeing.
Yes.
Yes, the planning department. Yes, that I think concludes the FY23 budget discussion and our new business agenda.
And I want to pause before we go, and we do have a need for a closed meeting, just to recognize, of course, our regular councilman, Paul Ballard, but also a very good friend of mine and former council member, Mr. Doug Smith. And if you want to take an opportunity to say something.
Yeah, I'll take 20 seconds. It's a pleasure to be with you all. I actually served on this body in the late 90s, right? So as I come back into the room, we were the Industrial Development Authority in those days. So it's great to be back in the room. We're up over here on Middle Street. Toy Hunter and I are here representing the Hampton Roads Alliance. So, Portsmouth, along with the other 13 localities, part of the Alliance. We do a lot of the outreach effort. We work real closely with Brian on offshore wind in particular right now. But one of the things we're trying to do as we come out of COVID and everybody's seeing one another again, we feel like we got to be visible. So you'll see, so we've got one of our vice presidents or I will be at every EDA meeting in the region. So most Tuesdays, we're pretty busy all over the place, but so you'll see one of us at most of your meetings, and anytime you want an update on what we're doing, we're thrilled to do that, but certainly a pleasure to be with you.
Did you work with the city?
Yeah, I was,
I mean,
I was,
the city hall.
had his job. Oh yeah. So I can't hold a job very long. So I was the development authority here. I was the deputy here. I was the city manager in Norfolk. I was the deputy city manager when Patty was the finance director in Virginia Beach. So I've been all over the place.
I mean, on the fourth floor,
On the fourth floor.
here.
Yeah, so I was
You just retired.
no, you know, you're thinking of this happened. This is
Oh,
a
okay.
building official.
Oh,
So I
okay.
got to tell you one quick
Okay.
story. Ray will appreciate this more than anybody.
Okay.
I got, y'all didn't invite me back to city council the second time. And I lost by 96 votes. By then I'd moved, I think I was working in Virginia Beach, and there was an article about this building official, Doug Smith. And it said, and it was a kind of a controversial article. And you read those comments online, and they just ripped this guy apart, but everybody thought it was me. So they said, we got rid of that guy off of city council. Now his cronies have given him a job. We got to get rid of him again. I said, man, I'm not even working there or living there, and they're still giving me a hard time. But,
That's why I was trying to get some clarity. Yes, sir.
No way. 1,000 miles apart in those two.
I was so that the fake information got me early.
Fake news.
Fake news, right?
Doug's in the right place now. Even back when we were on council, that's who gave me my mentoring regionally as a Portsmouth City Councilman. He was riding me all over Hampton roads, showing me, what's been done and what could be done and what Portsmouth should be looking at and trying to do. And I learned a lot from him in the time we spent on the council. And now he's regional like he should be, and not one place. So, but he's still in touch and Portsmouth in his heart. So that's where he started.
It's a lot of fun.
Go ahead, Neil.
I just did, if I could ask you, Doug, a question. You are intimately involved in the marketing of the region. Do you have any recommendations for us in terms of how we can improve Portsmouth's competitive position within, the region from your perspective?
Yes, and I'm going to tell you, this applies to the region. And I was one of the people that for 10 plus years was running around saying we need to diversify this economy. We're too dependent on the military and the shipbuilding and ship repair. And in reality, that's who we are. So yes, you want to diversify in addition to that. So I think you're seeing us as a region really focus on maritime innovation and trying to understand what the new plays, offshore wind and cybersecurity and some of those things that will come into that industry, but also really helping that current industry to grow, right, and get into digital shipbuilding. To me, Portsmouth's tagline has been world-class maritime center, right? I mean, you think about what you have here in terms of the ship repair, in terms of big, now with Siemens Gamesa. And I always remember the story when I had Brian's job. I was in Taiwan at a dinner, and nobody spoke English. I was lost, and this guy turned to me, and I tried to explain to him about Portsmouth, Virginia. And he says, Portsmouth, Virginia, Bob Walker, Ocean Marine. Here's a guy in Taiwan that knew about the Ocean Marine project, which is now obviously the Fairleigh project. You got to realize you all have these world-class facilities, and Brian's doing a great job with it, going up to the International Partnering Forum with the up in Atlantic City and whatnot, to push offshore wind. You got something special here. Now you want to do all the things you're already doing in terms of selling yourself as a very livable, welcoming, historic place, but those world-class maritime assets are like nothing else in the world, and really leverage those.
I've been amplifying that for 3 years.
Good.
And it does not seem to be getting through. We are one of the most blessed strategical areas in the country. We didn't get wind turbine because we were so intelligent. We got wind turbine because We had the strategic location,
That's
the
right.
deep water access,
That's right.
no impediments.
That's right.
We ship more goods than anywhere. We got a casino coming. We are the cat's meow, and I'm trying to give this to our citizenry. And I hope that they understand that we are at this point. And all we have to do is continue to ride the ship.
That's right.
Yes.
Well said. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And Ms. Hunter, would you want
Sure.
to greet?
Well, good morning. My name is Joy Hunter and I work for Doug. I'm with the Hampton Roads Alliance. Before I worked for Doug, I worked for the state for about 5 years in economic development. And before that, I worked here for Portsmouth Economic Development. And that's where I cut my teeth in this business. I've been doing economic development for about 10 years now, but I started in Portsmouth. So my heart is in Portsmouth too. And I lived across the street until Ms. Smith sold me my home in Western Branch.
Oh, yeah.
And,
I know her, but I wasn't on the EDA 10 years ago, but I knew you.
yeah, that's right. And so we live right over the church line, right over in Western Branch now. So we need a little bit more space for expanding our family. So I'm going to be here hopefully every month or so, until I have this one, and then I'll be back. And my hope for you all is that I work really closely with Jackie on some BRE initiatives. I do business retention expansion. So my goal is to help her and be an extension of the work that she's doing to retain companies here and supply them with the business intelligence that they need to succeed. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And last, another special guest that we've invited, Ross from Craddock and CDC.
Sure. My name is Guy Ross. I'm here to represent Bracy Parr, who unfortunately has come down with COVID. So he sends his regards and regrets. I'm a native of Portsmouth. I'm on the newly formed Craddock Community Development Corporation. We're advocates for historic Craddock, and we look forward to partnering with the EDA. I'm on the board of the Old Town Business Association and the Vestry at Trinity Church.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, thanks everyone for being here. We have a need to go into closed session.
I move to go into closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711 A.3 for the purpose of discussing the acquisition and or disposition of real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, specifically regarding properties conveyed by VDOT to the city along Turnpike Road and 53 Afton Park.
We'll get back.
Yeah.
I get it.
We need both Councilman Battle and
Battle.
Second, please.
Barbara has to be.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're gonna need for Mr. Barber to return to the room just before.
Okay.
I think you went to.
You can go, you have to
Take care.
give them.
Yeah, we have one. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, we had a motion by Mr. Mitchell. We're needing a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Brown. Mr. Barber?
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
And Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Closed motion is adopted. We are now in closed session.
I've lost controls.
That's not good.
The eyes on.
We're going to swap out presentations.
Ready?
Yes.
Oh, just one second.
Ready now?
Okay, I believe we are
Yeah.
ready.
I hereby move that each commissioner certify that to the best of his or her knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting just concluded.
So moved.
Second by Mr. Barber. We can roll. Mr. Barber,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes,
and Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Motion passes. We are now in open session. And your next item on the agenda is items submitted by commissioners.
I would like to ask that the director read the motion regarding the acceptance of the contract from the Democratic Community Development Corporation.
Second that motion.
Motion by Mr. Barber and a second by Mr. Brown to add item to the agenda, which is a resolution for 53 Hampton Parkway. Mr. Barber,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
yes,
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Motion passes. The item is added. I believe the chair has a copy of the resolution.
Yes, the resolution reads 53 Hampton Parkway, whereas Craddock Community Development Corporation, CCDC, has entered into a contract with RB Dutton LLC, the purchase contract to acquire 53 Hampton Parkway, tax parcel 0411-0210, the property. And whereas the purchase price under the purchase contract is $75,000, the purchase price. And whereas CCDC has offered to assign the purchase contract to the EDA, and whereas EDA desires to accept assignment of purchase contract and acquire the property for the purchase price. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved that the board hereby authorizes acceptance of assignment of the purchase contract and closing on acquisition of the property. The chair and vice chair are each authorized to execute any documents required to give effect to the assignment and to close on acquisition of the property. The chair, vice chair, secretary, and assistant secretary and their designees are each authorized to take such further actions as are necessary or desirable in their sole discretion and for adherence of the purposes of this resolution. Number 4, this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its adopted this day, 17th day of May 2022.
So moved.
Barber,
second,
second by Mrs. Smith. Roll. Mr. Barber,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
yes,
and Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Resolution is adopted by a vote of 5-0. Sir. Okay, are there any other items submitted by commissioners for discussion?
Yeah, I had one thing. A couple of weeks ago, I had an opportunity to go to San Francisco, and one of the things that I was really terribly impressed with is how they utilize all available spaces for either parks or recreational areas or food courts. And I started thinking, maybe we ought to be asking ourselves a question on the land that we have that we're cutting grass on. Is there opportunity for it to be utilized in a different way? And so one of the things that I was really impressed with was their food court park, where you can go there and actually rent tables. You could have parties there. They had an area for the kids. And so I have a slide demo that shows what it looked like. So maybe take a look at that real quick. And so if you look at, potentially just the area that's next to the Breeden Apartments, where you could actually have a permanent food court where people are going to events. They could actually stop by there. It could be a community area that people could participate during the week. So I just think that, it's a great opportunity to just look at maybe some of the land that we have and just determine, could it be used for something else? Could it be used for a temporary basketball court? Could it be used for a temporary food court? Could it be used for a temporary park, etc. But I was really, really impressed with that area. It was very family oriented.
It looked like a specific event was going on in a designated area for events. Were you up there for like
That was every day.
that's everyday activity at that location?
You can have parties for kids. They can rent a TP, and they can have a party there. People had park benches where they could eat at. They probably had about 20 dedicated food trucks there.
I wonder if there's something that could be incorporated into Portsmouth City Park.
I mean, it could be done anywhere if you want to invest in, whether it's a permanent situation or different food trucks come in. But it was very, very nice.
Well, I have a situation where I'm dealing with the actual Norfolk EDA to rent event space from the Norfolk EDA. Norfolk EDA is actually in charge of Military Circle Mall and their parking lot area there. So when you have the carnival there and events there, the Norfolk EDA rents out specific areas of the city to do events in. That's why I thought it was something like a event space that was being utilized at the time you took the video. The video was made, but is it always
there?
Yeah.
I guess that, I think it's a neat idea. The other question is just what is the potential uses and who's going to manage it?
And the liabilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I saw food trucks there and different individual, different private vendors there. Are they a staple of that park? Every time that park is open, are those same food trucks there all the time?
Yes. They have one area where they have maybe 10 permanent food trucks, and they have another area where different food trucks come in.
And any of that type of properties will fall under the city's rules and regulations. So it's something that they have set guidelines, like if you want to use a ball field, or you want to use a rec center or school or whatever, they have their guidelines as far as what you can and cannot do out there without a permit.
Right.
So it's doable, in
And
certain
another question.
locations.
Who's managing or responsible for, in charge of, or owns the property where Willett Hall used to be at? Where Wilson High School and Willett Hall used to be at, that big lot there. I'm driving home last night and I saw about 5 people out there camping, like tents and just camping out there. I'm like, what are they doing? But what is that property being used for? Because Willett Hall served
I'm not exactly sure what you're speaking of, but I believe the majority
Willett Hall
is city-owned property.
Yes,
Is
it's
where-
still a city.
Okay. Yeah, it was just some people out there camping last night across from the soccer field where they play soccer. Yeah. So you have the big parking lot where they used to have Willett Hall there, and the wooded area is back the wooded area now, but where Wilson High School and Willard Hall used to sit.
Right.
And I saw about 5 campers out there. Campfire, well, I'm sorry, Sunday night. Over the weekend, not last night, but over the weekend.
I was just wondering if that was even legal, unless they would have to get.
I just kept it moving, but I was like, what are they doing over there? Camping over there now?
You just can't roll up on, that's one thing that Parks and Rec deals with all the time, is with folks just roll up and feel like they can use a field,
Mhm.
or they can
Mhm.
have an
I don't know if they were homeless, if they were just setting up like
they
for the
can't-
night or what the situation was, but yeah.
Yeah, there's contracts, there's applications you have to make up just to use some of the city properties.
So,
Yeah.
but to answer the question, who owns that piece of property? That's the city property, yeah?
Yeah.
City property.
Mhm.
So, just as a kind of follow-up to the video that was shared last year, be happy to reach out to the planning staff, zoning staff. They're the individuals who oversee food truck regulations in the city. There is an application and permitting process, and approval process for that. And to determine kind of what the possibility would be, it's something I think that's been discussed. I had some conversations myself with regard to food trucks and where can they be located in the city, and make an inquiry into how something like this could be facilitated in the city. It seems like a pretty amazing venue to have, to offer as an amenity to your residents. Certainly in the downtown area where you have a walkable area with a large population base within blocks. I mean, this could be a nice feature. So what I will do is follow up and check with our planning and zoning folks to see how something like this comes to be, and can
Are
bring a
you
report back
passing
to
these
you.
out?
Yeah.
Yeah, because folks
Oh, they're all
are
different.
folks are very community, also looking for land for community gardens. Also,
I mean, it looks like fun.
Mhm.
So I guess these tents and things like this is all private.
No, you can, some of them were for rent. For
Oh,
children
so the
events.
city erected all of this stuff, and they,
Well, I can't.
you don't know.
Yeah, I can't answer all that.
So we'll have a report back for you at your meeting.
Cause I know City Park does have like little gazebos and things out there that you could rent. You could put a permit request in to use certain areas in that, in the city park. But for some reason that looked like an event. That didn't look like
It looked permanent.
it didn't look permanent because of the food trucks and the regulations that I know most food trucks have. You have to do permits and licensing for the time you're out there. Maybe San Francisco has something that I don't know about. So
Yeah, a lot of money.
Yeah.
So we are getting a lot of density downtown.
Mhm.
Apartments, a lot of people living here, so it would be relatively attractive.
Yeah, because they've been looking to do the Thursday thing someplace else. You know, have you heard anything on that? The Thursday night concerts.
Yeah.
You know, and that's been like 4,000 or 5,000 people, and they've outgrown it.
I haven't even seen it happening since LaVoy's went to Norfolk.
No,
Has it still been going on?
no, the problem is that they need another place because it got to be too crowded for the food trucks
Mhm.
and all of the people that come down. So they were trying to find another place.
We could just still limit the amount of food trucks. You don't have to crowd it every time.
No, you can't stop the people. It's 5,000 people that have been out here.
Yeah, the people of the food trucks, you can limit
The
everything.
people,
Everything. It has a set out amount, so or a limitation amount. So
you know.
for instance, if the building only holds 10,000 people, you're not gonna let 20,000 people in the building. You
But
stop it at
it's
some point.
outside.
Yeah, even if it's outside, Ray, if a racetrack only holds 20,000 people in the racetrack, you're not gonna put 50,000 people in the racetrack. You have to put a limit on it at some point.
Well, that ain't gonna work in Portsmouth, I'm telling you, because they've already been doing it for so long, and more people are coming, and it's growing. So you're gonna have a big issue if you think you're gonna cut a number off. You have to count people And that's gonna be the biggest headache that you ever want. So I think they're doing right by trying to find another location for it.
Just to say another question or topic. I know we talked about a retreat between the city council and the EDA. Has there been any discussion?
No, that's gonna be a major endeavor, but that ball is in their court
Okay,
because it came from them. So I'll touch base with the mayor and with Deborah to find out, if that's even been talked about since, and I doubt it if it has, but that's something that we've got to, kind of press them on to make it happen. Because they got a lot going on, a lot of functions, meetings, and so, but yeah, we need to keep it on their table. So I'll look into that.
For the food truck item, I was gonna suggest also looking at the city of Alexandria. They have a very robust food truck program for their on and off streets, city parks, as well as recreation centers and other designated areas within neighborhoods. So they could be a case study for that item as well.
Thank you, Ms. Kerman. We'll have a follow-up report back in June on the topic. So, are there any other items to be submitted by commissioners?
I can think of any.
Moving on to report backs. I did have one update to share, which is on the RFP for real estate services, which is due today. And has been through the procurement process for the last several weeks. We anticipate receiving those proposals by today's deadline, and then we'll be working to establish a review committee, which the hope is to have that occurring the week of May 30th. Chair, you have appointed Mr. Barber to serve on that panel, so we will be conducting those reviews beginning at the end of this month, and then should have an update for you in June on the status of that process, which we have a goal, I believe, of timeframe of July, August, having a commercial real estate broker on board representing the Economic Development Authority. So I just wanted to share that with you. That's where we are in the process.
All right, and let me back up. I want to publicly also just announce that Mr. Barber will be also representing us with the current CDC committee as a liaison, so to speak, just to, of course, to keep us up to date on what's going on with them and the things that we're trying to help them with. So I just want to put that out also.
And Chair, we have no other items for consideration this morning. That concludes our agenda.
Okay, and that old saying that all minds clear. Knowing that that's impossible, but I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
thank you.